Japan is a nation that got its chain took. A once glorious country basking under the rising sun and now kept in shackles by decades of being economically lost and confused. Since the 90s, Japan has experienced stagnations and instabilities that has slowly but surely made their competitors surpass them on the global market. The Japanese people feel that they have no guidance. Their leading political party sucks. They're not looking out for them. All these politicians are putting money in their pockets while their system will never change. But me, I'm different. I want to make Japan great once again. From the shackles of political corruption spearheaded by Japanese politicians that are being controlled by I'm not going to say what race, international financial capital. We know I can't say that. It was a financial capital. But put your faith in me as I will make Japan great once again. This is essentially the pitch deck of SOHEI KAMIYA, who decided to make a brand new far-right political party in Japan called Sanseido, meaning do-it-yourself, in 2020, and since then has been on a generational run, capturing 15 seats in the 248-member House of Councilors in July 2025, which is, for those that don't know, is as large of a culture shock to the country as Donald Trump winning the presidential election in 2016. But the feat is even crazier because he did it without the small loan of $1 million. But how did we get here? How did a mere YouTuber that was ranting on Twitter about basic right-wing talking points like the order and LGBT rights come up from nothing to get this much influence so quickly? Well, let's talk about it. 2 bombs dropped on Japan at the end of World War II, which meant, unfortunately, their chain was taken. The age of Japanese imperialism was no more. Japan was placed under U.S. occupation, stripped of its military sovereignty, and compelled to adopt a new constitution, which renounced war as the sovereign right of the nation, and declared that land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. In practice, this meant Japan officially had no army, navy, or air force. Instead, in 1954, Tokyo established the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, a strictly defensive organization, to the minimum necessary for homeland security. To this day, Japan doesn't even have nukes. This is important because whereas almost every other country in the vicinity of Japan has mandatory military service for its men, like South Korea, North Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, which is funny because all these countries were either colonized or occupied by Japan at one point, but Japan doesn't have any of it. Depending on who you ask, this can be good or bad. North Korea was literally testing ballistic missiles in the Sea of Japan because they know Japan won't do that. But also, relying on the United States for all those decades and embracing capitalism during the Cold War meant Japan could focus on building their economy, which ended up working out for them for a long time because Japan became the 3rd biggest economy in the world. At their peak, they had amazing social programs like universal healthcare and bullet trains, but that never changed the fact that they were never going to be top dog, that they were always somebody's little bro. In the 1980s, as Japan's GDP continued to grow and its trade surplus with the United States surged into the tens of billions, Americans started calling it the economic Pearl Harbor. A survey found in 1989 found out that 7 in 10 Americans viewed the Japanese economic threat as more serious than the Soviet one, and up to 45% believed that Japan was poised to eclipse the US as the world's leading power. As a result of this, Japan joined in the 1985 Plaza Accord with heavy influence from the United States, where the United States dollar was depreciated in relation to the Japanese yen to narrow America's trade gap and level the playing field. This currency realignment made the Japanese yen appreciate by roughly 50% between late 1985 and early 1987, instantly squeezing Japanese exporters' profit margins and threatening a collapse in industrial output. For those that don't understand what this means, a Japanese car that cost $10,000 in the US in 1985 would have been priced at nearly $16,000 by early 1987, which meant that nobody was gonna buy that shit because Japan was known for their cheap but very good products, and since now it's not cheap, they'll just buy American. To counteract that shock, the Bank of Japan slashed interest rates from about 5% to 2.5% by early 1987, unleashing a flood of cheap credit. That liquidity surge poured into real estate and equity markets, which meant Tokyo land prices doubled and the Nikkei stock exchange more than tripled by 1990, creating an unstable asset bubble. When policymakers tried to tighten the monetary policy in 1989, raising interest rates back towards 6%, the bubble burst, leaving banks crippled by non-performing loans, businesses with devalued collateral, which led to Japan's infamous lost decade. Now you might be wondering, why would Japan agree to the Plaza Accord in the first place if they knew it was going to hurt them like this? The simple answer is, Japan is America's bitch. Ronald Reagan was ready to slap tariffs on Japanese cars and electronics and was ready to start a full-blown trade war that could have devastated Japan's export-driven economy that had been relying on the US since the Korean War. Since then, Japan has pretty much been frozen in time. Prices barely moved for years, companies sat on piles of cash, and wages dragged. The population stayed the same, which means they're just older and useless, and taxes increased from 3% in 1989 to 10% in 2019. Public debt sits at 235% of the GDP, which is the highest in the developed world, and nothing has changed for a really long time. Except Twitter. When I say the leader of Sanseido is straight up Donald Trump, I don't mean that by exaggeration. The only thing he's missing is a small loan of $1 million because he came up in the trenches. Before he became the face of the Japanese outright, Mr. Sohei KAMIYA worked as a school teacher and a manager at his parents' small business. He ran for local politics and even aligned himself with the prevailing Liberal Democratic Party, which is the biggest political party in Japan and has pretty much been in power of Japan since the 1950s, running for the National Diet, which is Japan's parliament, but ultimately failing. He concluded that meaningful change couldn't be done inside big parties. People that actually want to change the system are in the minority and even then can't act without risking their careers. So what did he do? Well, like his protege Donald Trump, he went to Twitter. He tweeted stuff like, immigration should be tightly limited under strict rules, even though the country has an immigrant population of 3% and is consistently one of the lowest in the OECD. After a news appearance where KAMIYA claimed foreigners inheriting property in Japan don't have to pay inheritance tax, the Tokyo Shimbun, which is a news organization in Japan, said that that's misleading and that Japan taxes assets located in Japan regardless of nationality. And then he posted on Twitter saying, don't pay no mind to them folks, the Tokyo Shimbun is desperate. And obviously his takes on gay people are out there too.
I oppose the LGBT bill. I'm against forcing values on others or socially promoting LGBTQ+. I'm critical of transgender ideology and gender theory. However, since homosexual behavior itself is a matter of personal freedom, I don't support active interference or discrimination.
And to be honest, that's fair enough. When his followers are getting suspended on Twitter, he made a Dear Elon Musk tweet, and then he got Hitler allegations, which comes with the job. And most importantly, in a rally, he went up and said, the rule the world.
この人たちがユダヤ資本の手先になって日本を売るそんなことすると思いますか
He said it, man. He really said it. That's the nail in the coffin. This guy is out for the outright throne. You get me? Do you think Japanese people know anything about people? Has a ever stepped into Japanese land? He could have blamed the Chinese like his ultra-nationalistic ancestors. He could have blamed the Koreans because that's a low-hanging fruit. He could have denied his country's war crimes, but this is a signifier of a new era, folks. And if you want to play the game in this new era, you gotta blame the The interesting thing about Senseido is that the political influence they gained isn't through traditional campaigning by going out to the streets with a van with your supporters and clogging up traffic like they've been doing in Japan for decades, but instead their campaign was all built online. And you can tell this wouldn't name drop the like that if this guy wasn't locked in on Alex Jones telling us Magellan ruled the world. These guys were literally clip farming. Each clip has a huge simple headline with big subtitles and issues like immigration, tax, schools. These are all strategies that the right wing in the US has been using for years since the first time Trump got elected, and it worked. They became a legitimate party. 7 million people voted for them in the upper house election last month, which leads us to why. On the national PR ballot, roughly a quarter of young voters voted for Senseido, and 60% of them were men. And honestly, this makes sense. If you yell rule the world and gay people are taking your and your country is slipping through your fingers because Indians are running Family Mart now, obviously this is the demographic that you're gonna get. In a nation where the working culture sucks, social life sucks, everyone's fake and gay, what do Japanese young men do? At least in the US, when you feel mildly racist and confused, you can go to Iraq and kill people. But these people, they don't even have an active military. Right, guys? The meta to start a right-wing political party is right in front of your eyes. People don't want to hear complex political and social factors that led to them being poor. No, they just want hype moments and aura. That's what they've always wanted. The youth need a reckoning, man. They don't care. Their life been for generations. They've been pacified by the restrictions of Japanese society for too long. That's why amongst teenage to 20s voters, Senseido ranks number 1. These guys get shamed and called gay for marrying Hatsune Miku. There's guys renting girlfriends because they get no IRL. Love hotels are failing because couples aren't or having children. They got professional apology agencies because motherfucking mosquito, man. Breakup agencies exist because your isn't gonna break up with you face to face. So you gotta send a man in a business suit telling you your dick is small. There's no stress relief amongst young people. Their anxieties pile on, but they can't even put up a school to let it all out. For the people that don't understand how easy it is to fall for a party like Senseido or Nick Fuentes in America, it's pretty much because these people's lives and they get no and they can't blame anyone else other than the because that's why. Somebody took my sandwich. I gotta blame the mosquitoes everywhere. I gotta blame the my left me. Bro, it was the vaccines. The vaccines made my go crazy. It was immigration that made my go crazy. It was the vaccines. It was the Jordan. I made him. It was the like, I swear to God, it's her phone is being run by people. It's giving her TikTok algorithms that make her like not love me anymore. That's actually what happened. If I feel out of control in my life and I can't do anything about it, I gotta blame the New World Order. What else am I gonna do? My life sucks, and it's gonna suck tomorrow. It's gonna suck the day after. And I'm gonna blame the whole time. Because how else am I gonna cope with my shitty existence?